Jeremiyah Love is a special and elite running back prospect and a top 2 player on our big board.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst for Bleach Report. That's Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with the LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And thank you for making a Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you. The combine is over. We've done a lot of recapping this week, so we got to bring you our Big Board 2.0 post-NFL scouting combine. Who moved up? Who moved down? We're going to have some of those discussions, Keith. And I want to start with a polarizing name that I think right now, if you like just being on boots on the ground at the combine last week, what I kept hearing is it wasn't Caleb Downs, it wasn't Reuben Bain or Fernando Mendoza. A lot of scouts and teams have Jeremiyah Love, running back out of Notre Dame, as the number 1 overall prospect in this class. Before the combine, we had him on our big board at number 3. It was like him, Reuben Bain, and I think Caleb Downs. After the combine, coming in at 6 foot even, 212, running a 4.36. Running wide receiver drills, smooth, quick. He killed everything he did in Indianapolis and the interviews as well. Moved him up to number 2, and I'm Keith, I'm almost bullish. I'm like, all right, Caleb, there's a conversation between for me and you, between him, you and Jeremiyah Love. Keith, he's to me in that tier that you hold high of the Bijan, Jameers, just I think you throw Saquon in there, things of that nature. I'm putting Jeremiyah in that bucket. Like, he is a special elite running back that does literally everything.
Yeah, so I'm gonna throw it right back to you. Ask a fun question to start this big board conversation. But we have him at number 2, right? He's number 2, right behind Caleb Downs. And listen, for me, Jeremiyah Love has been a process, right? A process where I think you look at his stock for me has consistently risen. So when we, had this conversation and placing him at 2, I'm not mad at it. And I'm not mad at it, DP, because when you look at the guys behind him, and like I said, like sometimes some guys elevating could be about just as much about other guys having question marks, right? And you're talking about complete prospects and checking boxes. Jeremiyah Love checked that box previous of us dropping this top 25, right? And even if you think about into November and December, our biggest question was size, right? Is he really 5'11", 199 or something like that, right? But to come in 6 foot, what you said, 212, 215 pounds, that's a well-rounded running back, right? Like that's a guy that can carry the workload for your offense. And then he came into the NFL combine and put down a 4.3. So it's consistently checking boxes for him, which I don't mind moving him up. I want to ask you, if you had to rank these guys though, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jeremiyah Love, what is your ranking of those 4?
Saquon number 1, like Saquon's number 1 for me. Just watching him at Penn State, I don't remember who his quarterback was or none of that. It was just Saquon. You know what I mean? Like, it was the Saquon Barkley show at Penn State, right? So Saquon's number 1. Number 2, that one's a toss-up. Love Bijan. It's between Bijan and Jeremiyah Love. I'm a go Bijan. A slight Bijan from a stop-start ability, that he's just a little bit smoother in terms of the elusiveness. And we see, like, was it his rookie year when they caught that crazy overhead shot where he's like run? I think he caught a pass or something like that. He like jump cut and put the ball behind his back like it was and one mixtape and all that. I'm like, running backs don't do this at home. Like, that's not something that you need to be doing, but that's Bijan, right? So Bijan number 2. I actually have Jeremiyah Love at 3, and I have Jahmyr Gibbs at 4.
Okay, I'm going to go, if I had to rank those guys, I think I agree with you the first two. I'm going Saquon. I feel like just different, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna go Bijan second because I thought he was the closest thing that I seen to Saquon in recent drafts. I'm gonna go Jahmyr Gibbs 3, and then I'm gonna go Jeremiyah Love 4. But I'm gonna answer your question. Do I feel like he's put himself in that bracket? I'm gonna say yes, he has.
Yeah.
With the well-roundedness to his game, I think he has in the conversation. I think we had we did a Jeremiyah Love breakdown, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's clear now, and we talked about this a little off air, that you have to put him in the conversation and utilizations with the Christian McCaffreys, the Alvin Kamaras, like he's proven he's earned that opportunity to be able to be viewed as a quote unquote dual threat running back, right? So so I agree. So basically agreeing that Jeremiyah Love number 2, why he came in at number 2 for us. DP, what guy you have up next inside our top 10?
Man, looking at our big board here, let's talk Reuben Bain, right? Reuben Bain came in at number 5. So it's Caleb Downs at 1, Jeremiyah Love at 2, Arvell Reese at 3, Fernando Mendoza at 4. Reuben Bain did drop to number 5. And I think for me, it was the arm length. Like, and guys, hear me when I say this. I don't worry about the arm length with him. I just wanted it to be longer. And then there's like, I think there was a conversation or some tweets that came out, like Dane Brugler and some of the other news breaking people who went on Twitter and said, well, teams actually measure him at 32. And I'm like, see, this is the problem. We should not have mixed measurements. Like, this is a combine. It should be the same straight around. You're like, well, depending on who measures you, well, guys, if that's something that you got to say, we have a problem. Like, we should just have a staff that makes sure, hey, every player gets measured the same. Your wingspan, your height, everything is the same. For me or Reuben Bain, that is a problem.
What happens also, DP, is measuring arm length. It shouldn't be off, right? But it depends on, because we had this at LSU, right? When we had our camps, and what happened is that it depends on almost quote unquote where you put the tape measure, right? Like if somebody puts the tape measure in the right spot for the indentation of the arm, there is a proper way to do it, right? But when you're talking about moving the tape literally 1 inch to the left or 1 inch to the right, it makes all the difference in the world between a 30.5-inch arm and a 32-inch arm. You get what I'm saying? Like, we're not talking about much space, and we're talking about literally half of inches making a difference. But when somebody places that tape measure, right, and it could be who the NFL team is. One team may like, nah, man, he got 32. Look, there you go. He get, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a 32-inch arm right there, fair, right? It's as simple as when sometimes when friends be like, who taller, right? And then they line up against each other, and then somebody on their tippy toes and all, right? So it's like there's so much clutterness and gray area in that conversation. So we gotta
get this ironed out. So where's no gray area? But Reuben Bain still, to me, he's still top 5 player, I think. Plus the way Arvell Reese tested and the way he moved and looked, had to bump him up. But Reuben Bain, and he said at the podium, someone asked him, said to my guy Mike. Mike asked him, hey, like, how have teams talked to you about your arm length concerns? And his response was simple. They haven't. He was like, I believe that's a Twitter narrative, because all the teams I've met with, when they talked about anything, basically paraphrasing, anytime they talked about something negative about his game or where he can improve, one thing they didn't talk about negatively was his arm length. It wasn't something that teams, and I believe someone from The Athletic actually interviewed a D-line coach in the NFL, and they talked about he's an anti-measurements player, where in the basically explaining that the measurements for Reuben Bain doesn't matter. Like, his tape is that good. He's an elite run defender. He's powerful. He's hard to block one-on-one. You kind of ignore the tape, not the tape, the measurements. But if he actually has 32s, hey, great. If he has 31s or right on the cusp of 31s, I don't really care, because it doesn't show up on tape as a true problem 9 times out of 10. You know what I mean? He mitigates the arm length.
Yeah, I said this. I can't remember if I mentioned this on a podcast, DP, but I mean, we have to look at it in context of other situations, right? That Tyree Wilson, not we all,
Shamar
but
Stewart.
Yeah, people wanted them because like, oh, they got 35-inch arms, 36-inch arms. Well, how is that panning out in the NFL, right? Like, what are they doing with those 35, 36-inch arms, right? And so all of it looks great on paper, and I understand that part. But when you cut the film on and understands a prospect's process to playing football, right? Like that needs to be the thing. Like, what am I getting in the prospect? And I think more than the arm length conversation for Reuben Bain, and I've said this before, is that we were discussing, like, okay, do you think he's a double-digit sack guy, right? Like, like when you draft him, what do you think you're getting in him? Is the question, concern, or even the answer, right? For some situations. But DP, let's do this, man. We discussed guys inside of the top 10, right? There was not one wide receiver that was inside our top 10, but we have a couple right outside of the top 10. No, matter of fact, we have one at number 10. I'm sorry. So we'll discuss him and a couple of the playmaker wide receivers that are right outside the top 10 and have conversations about why did they fall in their places inside our top 25.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Furthering our discussion of our post-combine top 25 big board, that's what we're getting into next. But guys, free agency is here, and so are we. Get 1 month free of the Everydayer Club with the code free agency, no spaces, now through March 15th. If you want the show ad-free, you can get it, and you can keep the conversation going in Discord. Just join the club at LockedOnNFLDraft.supercast.com. Guys, at number 10, as Keith alluded to, move Jordyn Tyson up. Jordyn Tyson was at 11 last time on our big board 1.0. It's been some moving and shaking in the top 10. Spencer Fano, who still love, but I view him as an IOL, an interior offensive lineman. He came in with really short arms, shorter than a Will Campbell, who everybody's decided to attack. He had a really, and I can tell you guys from what I heard, his knee was really messed up from the MCL situation. Like, you know what I mean? Him trying to rehab and stuff now, there's a lack of movement in that knee, and that messed him up technically, late in that season and in the playoffs and stuff like that. Talked to a Patriot scout, and he was like, I said, how are you guys feeling about Will Campbell? He said, that's our starting left tackle. People don't realize once he got hurt, things changed for him. When he's healthy, we're fine with him. We're not moving him, stuff like that. So just something that, bring you guys some information from what I heard at the combine. But Jordyn Tyson, he's another guy that we both really like in this class. And I think I've said he's the most complete wide receiver out of him and Tate and Mackay, and you got Boston, all these receivers. I feel like I get more route running upside, with him. Once you kind of iron out the details with him, he's twitchy, explosive. But I think the yards after catch ability is there for him. It's just Sam Levitt wasn't completely accurate or didn't throw with the best placement. Moved him back up to 10, Keith. And crazy people are going to be like, DP, Keith, why is he at 10? He didn't do anything. Well, he measured in, and guys, he measured it exactly at 6'2", 200 pounds. That's two players. Him and Jeremiyah Love, they actually came in where they're listed on the website. So shout out to Notre Dame and Arizona State. But the thing for him, Keith, was the medicals. Talked to an NFC scout on yesterday. I said, hey, have you heard anything when it comes down to the medicals, good or bad, about Jordyn Tyson? His reply to me was, it came back clean. He said, I looked into it. I wanted to see if anything popped, and there was no red flags. There was nothing negative that popped up. Remember, guys, he tore, I think, his ACL, I think MCL, either PCL or LCL back in like 2022, 2023, about 3-4 years ago, I think it was. And for that now, we're heading into the 2026 NFL draft, for that to not be an issue, to have all those ligaments be torn or to have that injury, which was a serious knee injury, it kept him out, I think, most of the 2023 season. for him to bounce back and not have any red flags pop up on that knee, Keith. How many times we see guys have a knee injury, go to the combine, and it pops up as a red flag? Like, oh, man, this might be an issue that keeps you from having a 15-year career. You might be only 7 to 10 if at best. For Jordyn Tyson, it came back clean. So that's why I was like, hey, let's move him up and get him in that top 10 because I feel like he was a top 10 player when healthy.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about watching the film and not many concerns, right? His film was where you said, right? It was going to be the doctor's office, right? when he goes
Right.
and gets the medical checks, and things like that. But I feel comfortable with him at number 10, and kind of how we had the big conversation about Jeremiyah Love in regards to the other top wide receivers, right? When I think of wide receivers that were drafted in the top 5 as far as prospects over the past few years, the Marvin Harrison Jr.'s, the Jamar Chases, right? Do I put him at that level? No, I think he's a tier under that. But in this class, he's the best in this class as far as well-roundedness. DP, speaking of that, man, we're talking about checking boxes and wide receiver playmakers, right? Talk about Carnell Tate, because feel as though he had and this was another one that was confusing conversations about the 40-yard dash time, right? I mean, and if we're going to continue to confuse this, then why are we doing it, right?
Why are we doing it?
Carnell Tate, let's say if he projectedly did run a 4.5, right? How do you feel about that with him in this current situation?
Crazy enough, Keith, it doesn't.
And just to give the people, I'm sorry, let me do this. We had Carnell Tate at number 12, so he's one spot in between him and Jordyn Tyson.
Yeah, so it was like Tyson at 10, Spencer Fondo at 11, and Carnell Tate at 12. I think for me, Keith, it didn't change anything for me. Anybody go read my scouting report over at Bleacher Report. You go to the concerns or where he can improve. I said he was not an explosive starter. He's more of a build-up speed, long strider. He's got that gazelle type running style. He eats up grass when you give him cushion. But if you were looking for a 4.4, which I think I was talking to a speed guy. He was like a trainer. He said it looks like he stumbled a little bit coming out of the blocks on his 40. And I was like, yeah, it's not. I mean, he's listed at like 6. He did come in at 6'2" and not 6'3. So that was actually interesting that him and Tyson were both 6'2", where Ohio State had him listed at 6'3". So that was interesting. But I didn't. The 40 time didn't bother me. I was like, if he runs 4.5 or 4.54, doesn't bother me none at all, because you look at some of the best receivers and you look at Devontae Adams, and I promise you, now you give teams the opportunity to be like, man, where would you have drafted Devontae? Like probably top 10. Like, you know what I mean? This is probably a short of a Hall of Fame, if not Hall of Fame wide receiver. Like, this dude is one of the best we've ever seen. And it was all about, like, I think Stephon Diggs talked about it. It's all about deception, decelerating, being able to accelerate when you need to, and how to, deceive cornerbacks. It's not just running in, like you always talk about, Keith, running fast and not know where you're going. You're running nowhere fast. Like, so
you're going nowhere.
You always say that. You always say that. So, you know what I mean? So I think for Tate, yeah, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to see him hit 4.48 or 4.47. But then you ask yourself a question, is like the difference between 4.47 and 4.52 or 4.54 to me is more so the start, that 10-yard split. Like, you know what I mean? You got a guy, I think you'll have a guy who was, I think it was Damon Claiborne, the running back out of Wake Forest. I think he ran his 10-yard split was crazy. It was like 1.6, 1.59, but he ran a 4.37. So his top end speed is elite, but for some reason, like, he didn't get out the blocks fast enough. So it doesn't bother me too much, Keith. How do you, when it comes on to Tate, how do you feel about if he actually clocked in at 4.54? Because right now it seems like we don't have an actual time on him that actually everybody can agree on.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I look at it and I say, what does the film say for him? And to be completely honest, the 4.51, if it stands, right, I'm not surprised with it. Like, he looks like somewhere in between a 4.47 and a 4.54 type of guy, right? Like that. That's what his play speed is, and I think that's what you have to take into account. So, it's one of those situations where the concern will remain a concern for me, but it didn't move me much because I already knew kind of what I was getting in him, right? And I think that's important for like NFL teams, and drafting him is like, like if the 4.47 versus a 4.51 moved you that much, then you didn't evaluate him properly, right? Like you missed the mark on something when watching.
I want to throw something out here real quick, Keith. You know, we mentioned AJ Green. AJ Green actually has 2 inches of height on him at 6'4", where he came in at 6'2". Heck, AJ Green ran a 4.48. You know what I mean? Looking at mock draft, they had him at a 4.48 with a 1.55 10-yard split. And crazy enough, he had a vertical of like 34.5, which is crazy. Did not expect to see AJ Green with a 34.5 because of his track background, and he still won a bunch of contested catches and stuff like that. But just for some context, he was close to a 4.5. You know what I mean? Step on that in that 10-yard split, and he's hitting 4.51, and then people might have questioned it too. So yeah, like I said, it doesn't listen. As long as you don't run a 4.58, I'm good. You know what I mean? You running. Especially at like what was he at 195 something like that? Like, as long as you don't run that, Carnell, I'm okay. I'm not going whine about it.
Yeah, well, DP, let's do this, man. We went and we talked our playmakers, talked to wide receivers. I want to get into the back end of our top 25 and discuss a couple defensive backs. One guy who blew the combine out, and then one guy who kind of underwhelmed with his 40 time. I want to discuss a couple defensive backs, a couple defensive prospects inside our top 25 coming up next.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles they step into every single day. It's time to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. And I want to celebrate the woman in my life, my wife, man. Without her, I would not have my 2 sons. I would not have been given the opportunity and the encouragement and the strength to be able to pursue my career in football, with scouting and in media and everything else. That all boils down to her. So understand, guys, that your emotional well-being, it matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you. Talking about breaking down kind of the back end of our top 25 kids. And I think I know who you were talking about. You said the guy that blew out the combine and tested. It was number 17 on our list. Dillon, Thieneman, safety out of Oregon. And I think I know the other guy you were talking about, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, Keith, out of Toledo. He came in at number 20. Dillon Thieneman absolutely just ripped the combine to shreds. And I think people shout to Coach Prime. Remember, he used to work for NFL Network, and I can't remember the corner's name. Was it Troy Apke? I think it was, who went to the Commanders. It was like a white safety, and he was like, "Oh, that white boy can run." Like, you know what I mean? But crazy enough, that was the word coming out of Indy, like leading up to the DB workouts that I heard, is that he was aiming for a 4.3, and I was like, you won't see it at Oregon because they didn't let him open up and just run like that. They kept him low hole. But at Purdue, oh, you absolutely saw that. Him at the top of the roof playing free safety in cover 3 and cover 1. And you saw that sideline to sideline range, the raw athleticism. I was texting somebody the other day. He was like, man, I'm struggling with Thieneman. I don't see that speed on tape. I was like, that's because of the way he was utilized at Oregon, how Dan Lanning put him in that specific role that he needed him to fill. Go back to Purdue. If you have any questions about his speed, his play speed, guys, go back to Purdue. You will see that range, Keith. But Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, he didn't have. I think it was a miss. I blame Nicky Manwari. Keith, I blame Nick because people are now trying to find the next one of him. Right. And he might be one of one at 6'3", 200 plus pounds with elite athleticism, Keith. He might be one of one at the safety spot, but people had a misconception a little bit about where he was going to land. And don't get it twisted. Emmanuel McNeil, EMW, 4.52. So it's not a bad time. I just think people was expecting 4.4s, and they're trying to put him in that Nick Manwari role, 6'3.5", 201 pounds and everything, 4.52, 158, 10-yard split. 35.5-inch vert with a 10-2 broad. I think people kind of put a little bit too much on this young man. And I didn't see 4.4. I saw instincts and a 4.5 on this tape.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I think what's going to be the conversation surrounding Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is also the level of competition, right? I think that's the part that is going to, because we've seen comparisons of like, okay, do we overjudge this situation like we did with Kyle Hamilton years ago, right? And it kind of backfired with the 40-yard dash time. But I think the one thing that Kyle Hamilton had going for him at the moment, DP, was one, I feel like his film was just better, right? Just elite plays, just film was just better. But also, I think what kept him high for a lot of people was the fact of he was playing at Notre Dame against, Power 5 or Power 4, whatever you want to call them now, right? Opponents. Mm-hmm. And I think for NFL talent evaluators and scouts is going to be like, okay, well, playing in the MAC against who is going to do what, right? Like how do you, grade that because of how many NFL wide receiver prospects did you face on a weekend and week out basis? But I do believe, DP, that whatever the role that you had for him, if he's going to play your low hole player and, kind of be that box, that hybrid nickel, strong safety, however you want to phrase it, I still think he's capable of that. Gotcha. Even running that 40-yard dash time, I think he's capable of it because that's not all that goes into playing that role, right? Like when you talk about that very part of that very area of the field is not all just, okay, how fast are you, right? Like there's other things that go into it. Like you talk about the instincts, the range, like just how you process stuff. Just there's a lot. And then even the fact is this, listen, he has a lot of length to him, right? So can he still be disruptive with his length? I think that's part of the conversation.
No, 100%. I think, understanding, like, again, guys, 4.52 at the safety spot. You see a lot of teams running that too high coverage shells anyway to eliminate explosives. He's a guy that has the size and the athleticism and the length that you want to use to match up against those. If he's playing in that big nickel spot, you get some of these big wide receivers that reduce down into the slot as a power slot. You want to see, can he match up with those guys and the tight ends? Keith, you want to know, hey, can I utilize you as somewhat of a tight end eraser in the middle of the field and take those guys away or limit their impact?
Yeah, and I think there's somewhat different players coming out, right? But a guy who ran a quote-unquote underwhelming 40 time was safety from Notre Dame, Harrison Smith, right? Years ago.
Yeah.
And this guy has been a Pro Bowl. I think he's been an All-Pro at points in his career and has had a very lengthy career, right? A very long career. So there's more that goes into the safety position than just running a fast 40-yard dash time, because so much of it is mental processing and getting a jump or getting a beat on where the football is going.
No, 100%. I think not just him, Keith, but I wanted to highlight, TJ Parker, man. Moved him up to 21. Keith, this has probably been one of the biggest risers, in terms of how he's handled the draft process, right? Going down to Mobile. Again, and we talk about it. Once you get out of the season and you get away from the CFP, once we get in the draft season, the biggest thing as a prospect is if your stock isn't high, or even if your stock's high, right? Like a Jeremiyah Love, somebody else, you got to prove it's you and not everything else around you, right? Same thing with a receiver. Hey, yeah, I had a great quarterback, but dog, it's me. Like I'm him, right? For guys whose stocks have fallen during the season, now you enter the draft process with your goal should be to create that narrative that it's them in regarding the program. It's not a me problem. And he's done that. He went to the Senior Bowl, was outstanding there. He tested well and did things well at the combine. He did the drills well. He looked good. He came in, I believe he measured in well and everything. Like he handled.
I think he came in at 6'3.5", I believe 6'3.5", 260 plus pounds.
Yeah, and that's what they had him listed at Clemson. That he was around 6'2", 6'3", 260. We've seen, like I said, seeing him up close and personal. You saw that long arm and that ability to drive guys back at the Senior Bowl. He did it to almost every tackle he faced, right? So I think he helped himself a ton. He ran the hoop drill well. and everything. He had 33 and 1/8 on the arm, whatnot. 4.68 in the 40 with a 1.6 110-yard split. Again, going Damon Claiborne, running back, ran a 1.59, 1.6 flat 10-yard split. He had 10-inch broad and a 34-inch vert. I think that speed to power and his best trait to me hadn't even been showcased yet. Like, as we go back to summer scouting when we talked about him, I highlight the fact that he was really technical with his hands in terms of placement, knocking guys' hands down, having counters. He went to the Senior Bowl and said, I don't want to show any of that. I'm just trying to run through guys. Like, I want to show y'all that I got power. And he did and he's a good run defender because you can't play for Dabo in that defense and not set the edge and everything. And he did a great job of that in college. So I think he helped himself a lot. And I think teams that need edge, you think about the Detroit Lions at, I think, 17 and some of these other teams, if they need edge and you miss out on the big, I guess, 3 or 4 that's probably going to go top 12, you got yourself a TJ Parker. Like I said, for those who, Cassius Howell, like Keldrick Falk, depending on where you want to play him, right? If you're a team to say, we run 4-3, I'm cool putting you at the defensive end. And I know on third downs, I'm reducing you inside. And I know that you can take advantage of these guards. So the pass rush situation is definitely plentiful for these NFL teams.
Yep, I agree with that. With DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to see, man, y'all can talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Coming up on tomorrow's show, on Friday, we're going to close the week out strong. Sonny Styles, a guy that moved up to number 6 in our top 25 big board 2.0 post NFL scouting combine. He moved up to number 6. We're going to break down his games, the pros, the cons, give you the comps, and explain our grade on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.